Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
May we be nurtured together. May we be nourished together. May we strive together. May our learning shine again. And may we not quarrel. Peace. In verse 20 to 23, in chapter 6, Bhagavad Gita, Jnana Yoga, Lord Shri Krishna has spoken about Dhyanam Palam, that is the benefit of meditation, Vedantic meditation. He is now not satisfied with discussing the complete detail of Dhyanam Swarupam, that is the nature of meditation. So in the following verses, he will further elaborate what is meditation and what is to be done during Vedantic meditation. Verse 24, we will now begin together. Sankalpa prabhavan kaman tyaktva sarvan asheshataha manasaivendriya granamam viniyamya samantataha. Okay, what are we supposed to do during meditation? The first is to drop future plans. Kamantyatva, future plans. So during meditation, turn the mind away from worldly thoughts regarding family, work, who said what, and when they said it, and what needs to be done tomorrow. Business, any kind pertaining to the worldly matters, gets put aside temporarily during meditation. That is, we say for the next 20 minutes, I am solely a seeker and devoter of the truth for the next 20 or 30 minutes that I happen to be doing the meditation. This means it's a verbal statement. It's a verbal suggestion that one gives to themselves. Now, if anatma thoughts, that is worldly thoughts, when I say anatma, I'm talking about worldly thoughts. If they do arise, what do? Immediately divert the mind to atma-related thoughts. The word immediate is important. Sankalpa prabhavan. This is going to answer how anatma thoughts are born. Anatma thoughts, that means thoughts related to the world, are born by cooperation or intention. What does this mean? It means that any thought at the beginning is not powerful. Like a ripple in the pond. It's not powerful at all. But how does the ripple gain traction? How does it become bigger? By what? By the wind. So by the wind power, the small ripple at the seed level was not strong. But by giving it more power, by a factor of intention, cooperation, what happens? The ripple starts to become a big wave. And now the big wave floods the entire mind, and it becomes extremely hard to divert thoughts towards Atma. So the message is, at the seed level is the best time when to immediately divert attention back onto the self. Otherwise, one single thought or one single extra attention will immediately, as though giving it wind power, until it becomes almost, you need to give up meditation, because just wait it out rather. Do not encourage anatma thoughts. How do we encourage anatma thoughts? By giving it power through intention and cooperation. In other words, we ourselves, our minds, when I say we, our minds is what projects the thoughts and makes it bigger. By encouraging it, by giving it more perspective, by thinking into it. Same thing with jealousy or anger. Suppose there's a memory of someone who invoked an emotion that is of the nature of, one could say, negative. And every time, the more we put focus onto that conversation that induced anger or jealousy or frustration, it is as though the wind giving it more power. So you can see how we trick ourselves. We think I'm resolving it, but actually we're giving it more power. And then we talk about it to our friends, and then we contaminate their own minds with our big waves of thoughts. How then do we prevent such thoughts? The answer is, while they are at seed level, worldly thoughts get immediately diverted back onto Atma thoughts. At the smallest level is when it's the easiest. Indriya gramam viniyamya. So this line is saying completely restrain sense organs. Sense organs means what? Eyes, ears, mainly, through which the world enters. So what does this mean in practice? At meditation, do everything necessary to help close the disturbance of the visual and the hearing. In a modern world, we can even use like Bose QC35 noise cancellation headphones. They work really well. They cancel out any ambience or even people talking. A blindfold also helps. Whatever, or even a dark room with closed windows. Verse 25. Shanai Shanai Ruparamed Bhutya Drhti Grihitaya Atma Samstam Manah Krtva Nakinchidapi Chintayet. Now Krishna is going to say, withdrawal from anatma objects is done how? Gradually. One cannot go from worldly thoughts to the nature of the self overnight. Tell me one thing in nature that happens overnight. Nothing. Everything has a... See, even the night doesn't come like that. It has a gradual transition from the day. Also because Atma is the subtlest nature of the mind. So to go from gross, see, all our lives were conditioned to what? Focus on the gross. And to suddenly go from the grossest thoughts onto the subtlest of the subtlest, it's not possible. So this means it's a very gradual process, thought by thought. Just like, for example, to go from the first floor to the ground floor, there's steps in between. There's no jumping, is there? This means what? We come down step by step. If one tries to jump down, what happens? They can fall, and then they get hurt, and they get discouraged from what? Pursuing the journey all over again. So, if it's fast, it's probably unnatural. The key is gradual and slow, because the nature of nature, the universe, is slow and gradual. So what's the purpose of meditation? The purpose is to withdraw the mind from anatma thoughts, from worldly thoughts, and then dwell upon the meditator. Who is the meditator? The meditated. The meditator and the meditated are one and the same. This means the one who's sitting down for meditation is the one who's being meditated on. This means the one who's sitting down for meditation does not go elsewhere and meditate on something else other than the one who is here sitting down for meditation. Why? Because meditation is a subjective practice. It's not objects. So if I sit down and I imagine something like an object, it's what? That's not meditation, that's thinking. That's putting things in my mind and then observing them. So objects should be, objects I mean what? Anatma objects, wife, kids, happy faces, sad faces, seen throughout the day, they should be gradually removed one by one from the mind. There are three kinds of objects. The first type is worldly objects. That's the first thing that comes to our minds when we close our eyes. It's always about someone else. The second thought is thoughts of the body related to our physical condition. And the third type of objects, thought objects, is pertaining to your mind. So these are the kind of thoughts that will come during meditation, which means the order of moving one's attention from objects to the subtlest of the subtlest is in the same order. Firstly, recognize the worldly objects. Verbal affirmation. This is exclusively time for pursuing truth. Put it away. Then, look into the body, scan the body. Whatever comes up, once again, verbal affirmation. This is exclusively time for contemplation, for self-inquiry. Then, anything related to the mind that comes up, mind means what? Personal stuff. Likes and dislikes that we have towards ourselves and the world. Once again, we say what? This is time exclusively for meditation. Put it away. Being assertive and deliberate about it. And then, finally, shift the attention from, that means what? Worldly thoughts, body thoughts, mind thoughts, and finally, to thoughts of self. Akhanda akara vrtihi. Any kind of thought pertaining to consciousness sakshi behind every thought. That's where the focus goes. See how we did it in order, slow? We didn't just jump from worldly thoughts straight into consciousness. We did worldly thoughts, body thoughts, mind thoughts, and then, so we eliminated worldly thoughts, body thoughts, mind thoughts, and then we what? Entertained consciousness thoughts. So one more thing about the mind is whatever one escapes in life is the first thing that's going to pop up in the mind. So if you close your eyes and during meditation there is just intrusive thoughts, those thoughts are probably what one is not fully addressing in life. So how do you tell if something needs to be addressed? Just look at your thoughts that keep coming up. This means thoughts related to our personal life will come up. What kind of thoughts? The thoughts that we are escaping. If we haven't forgiven our parents, or we haven't told sorry to someone, or we haven't been kind to someone, that's actually going to come up in meditation. So it all gets buried in the subconscious mind, and when does it come up? At that exact time when I want to be for myself. So we never get a break from thoughts unless we resolve them. So, question. How does one deal with emotions or thoughts during Vedantic meditation? This is the next topic. Firstly, do not control them. Why? What do we say about ripple and wind example? Every time I control, what am I doing? I'm giving it more cooperation and intention, thus I'm making it bigger. So it's counterintuitive. In other words, objectify them. This is a thought. It is standing aloof during meditation. You know what aloof means? Not invested, just look at it. They do not belong to me. That's the statement that one says. They don't belong to me. It is a thought, but they don't belong to me. Whatever is presented to me is not me. Because the knower and the known can never be the same. That's just common sense. That means whatever is known to you cannot be you. Even pleasant experiences need to be objectified. Why? Because they belong to the mind. Anatma. In Mandukya Karika, Acharya Gaudapada says, even pleasant or pleasantness in meditation itself is an obstacle.
Yeah, I found that sometimes you get an inspiration.
Yeah.
You think, wow, that's great, I need to hang on to that.
They were so zen.
What about it?
They also say that as well.
Oh, really?
Not to clasp on anything good or bad.
Good.
And that's an interesting piece of advice to objectify it, because then you're giving it boundaries, which means it's got a beginning and an end.
Just a quick question, sorry. On this point here, shift to thoughts of the self, consciousness. So we're talking about obviously objectifying thoughts there. Can you describe what a thought of consciousness is?
No, because I'm going to come up to that section very soon. Okay, but good question. So why not shift? Okay, why should we not shift attention to pleasantness? Because pleasantness is a state of a calm mind. When the mind is tranquil, the natural byproduct is pleasantness. If I associate and I think that pleasantness belongs because I am liberated, then what am I actually doing? I'm placing the I onto the mind, which is what? Experiencing pleasant emotions. Why? Because it's tranquil. See how we trick ourselves? So even pleasantness is of the mind. The knower of the pleasantness, that's what we're interested in. And he calls this rasa swadaha, perception of pleasure. That means rasa swadaha is a no-no. So we're talking about witness of pleasantness, not the pleasantness itself. And as Martin pointed out, it's very easy to be seduced by the insight or epiphany and then make a deal about it. What is this witness? The witness which is there prior to the meditation, during the meditation, during the epiphany, remains the same during the insight, remains the same when the meditation's over, remains the same when the person's bragging about their transcendental meditation, remains the same before it goes to sleep, remains the same during sleep, and remains the same tomorrow morning when we wake up and drink a coffee. That's what we're interested in. Not interested in about what's being witnessed or the kinds of experiences that are being witnessed. What does this mean? It means one wants to own up to the witness, Atma. This word own up, circle that, because I'm going to explain it now. Own up to witness Atma and not enjoy the pleasantness. Now, what does it mean to own up to yourself, to own up to Atma? When I say Atma, I'm talking about the self. Self means consciousness. Okay, follow this example. Listen carefully. Imagine you have a screen, and the screen has no edges. So I can't put it like that because it has no edges. And a character is on the movie screen looking for the movie screen. Is it ever going to find it? Why? Because the character on the movie screen is borrowing its existence from the movie screen. It is sustained by the movie screen, which means if it is looking for the screen, it will never find the screen. You see the irony there? If I look for the truth, if I look for Atma, if I look for consciousness, if I look for the supreme reality, I will never find it. Why? Because the one who's trying to find it is pervaded by it already. So how can it find a movie screen when its existence is being borrowed from the movie screen? And it is not apart from the movie screen. Which means what? All that one can do is what? Own up to the fact, to the already existing fact, that I am already never not the supreme reality. I am never not consciousness. All the character can do is that I am already on the screen. And every thought and action attempting to find the screen is also what? Pervaded by the screen. So this means if I try to find a thought regarding consciousness, or I try to do some action about my nature, the very thought and the very action trying to find myself is already what? Pervaded by myself. So this means to look for the screen is never to discover the screen. Thus, all that one can do is own up that the very person sitting here now in this seat is one of those characters on the movie screen, already pervaded by the Supreme Truth, never was not pervaded by the Supreme Truth. So do you know what it means to say own up? To surrender to what is already true. Surrender to what? Surrender to God. What do we mean when we say God? Ishvara. What is Ishvara? The screen, the total. Does it make sense? Now suppose that a character refuses to accept this on the movie screen. Will the movie screen care? No. So what does this mean? Consciousness stands apart from whatever happens. Now when there is suffering, who's aware of that? Is someone else aware of that, or are you aware of that? You're aware of that. And what is the screen? Consciousness stands apart, simply witnessing the character's failure to what? Own up that the character is already pervaded by the truth. Which means what? The character can say the movie screen does not exist. They're still pervaded by the movie screen. The character can have arguments about the total Ishvara. They're still pervaded by the total Ishvara. So what is this movie screen? The very same idea, concept, which every single religion is attempting to convey in their limited ways. So no matter where we're talking about Christianity, Buddhism, Zen, Vedanta, they're all conveying the one same non-negatable truth, because of which every single experience is being awared by, pervaded by the total. Pervaded by what? Consciousness. So what's the summary? Meditation is only worthwhile, Vedantic meditation, if one owns up to the teaching during meditation. Only then it becomes worthwhile. If I own up, do you know what the word own up means now? I explained it with the movie screen. Own up means I am the witness of the mind and all of its ordinary and extraordinary experiences, and none of them belong to me. This also means the meditator needs to recognize the nature of the body. The body has its nature, which is what? Sensations. The mind has its nature, meaning what? Thoughts, emotions. And I, the true I, is neither the body's nature nor the mind's nature, which means any sensations is discarded, objectified. Any thoughts, emotions is discarded, objectified as what? Anatma. And every time it pops up again, what do? We put the focus back onto Atma thoughts, which you've asked, and I will now explain what it means to put our minds on Atma thoughts. Dhyanam Swarupam, I'll give you in 4 steps. This is how to meditate in 4 steps. Because remember, the whole discussion today is how to meditate and what it is. So after sitting down, the posture is not necessary in Vedantic meditation. It can be done while sitting, standing, gardening, vacuuming your house, shopping, driving a car. Vedantic meditation, please understand, is not limited to closing one's eyes, because we're talking about nididhyasanam, meaning what? Entertaining thoughts of Atma. With what? Our minds. This can be done in the shower, this can be done anywhere. It's not just limited to sitting down in the corner. So, step 1, remember 4 steps of meditation? Step 1, turn the mind away from the gross objects. Why gross? Because the gross are easiest to recognize in our minds. How? You simply say, whatever arises, nothing belongs to me, all is given for my use, so I do not want to claim what does not belong to me inherently. All is given by the total. I did not create anything that pops up in my mind. So the moment one stops claiming objects, that is gross objects, is the moment the mind is free to entertain Atma thoughts. That's common sense. If we sit down in meditation and we have anatma, worldly thoughts, is meditation going to be worthwhile? No. How can we own up if the mind's busy entertaining worldly thoughts? Remember, nothing here belongs to you. Everything belongs to Ishvara. Nothing's yours. Even the air that we breathe now is not ours. For example, the sound that's now being used to communicate these words is borrowing what? Air to reach your ears. Did I create the air? No. So this means my message can only be what? Communicated to your ears if the air is present and the voice box works and the cells in the brain work, which I'm not moving. So nothing I'm doing. I'm totally using the field to communicate with you. And you're using what? Your eyes, which you didn't create, to look at the message on the board, which you also didn't create. So this is what it means to own up everything, because none of it belongs to me. So how do we own up everything? Understanding that nothing belongs to me. The moment you own up is the moment attachment loses power. A lizard who's on the ceiling, upside down, thinks what? I'm supporting the entire ceiling. In the same way, a human being in meditation, due to the attachments, thinks my family needs me, the world needs me, the society needs me, I'm important, I make a difference. Without me, everything's going to fall apart. The truth is, the world's going to be just fine without you, because you don't control the field. Ishvara controls the field. So, see what I'm getting at? If I own up that none of this is mine, and what is usually mine? What I'm attached to. And what I'm attached to means what? Anatma thoughts. Anatma thoughts mean what? Denial of owning up to Atman. So, the moment I say and know what it means to say, none of this belongs to me, all is given by Ishvara, is the moment attachment loses power. Step 2. Dismiss each of the 5 koshas one by one as matter only. Body is gross, mind is subtle. Mind is gross, intellect is subtle. Intellect is gross, consciousness is. You see how we moved up? First, Annamaya Kosha, anything related to what? Physical, address it, let it go. Anything related to digestion, beating of the heart, that's Pranamaya Kosha, let it go. Anything related to Manomaya Kosha, the emotions, feelings happening right now. Do I feel agitated? Do I feel discouraged? Even discouragement is what? An emotion. Belonging to what? Manomaya Kosha. Let it go. Do I feel motivated? Even motivation is an emotion belonging to where? The mind. Let it go. Intellect. Am I thinking about something that I need to do for tomorrow? Am I calculating? Let it go. Vijnanamaya Kosha. Finally, Anandamaya Kosha. If there's any pleasantness during meditation, what did we just say earlier on? It's the result of a quiet mind, let it go. And then, you see how we're moving slowly towards consciousness-related thoughts, akanda akara vrtihi, any thought related to my Atma Swarupa, which we will get to very soon. Okay, step 3. Withdraw the mind even further by the help of inquiry. How? Buddhya, by the help of the intellect. So how do you withdraw the mind from anatma? By the help of the intellect. What kind of intellect? The one that has Vedantic teaching behind it. What does this mean? What's teaching? I am neither the mind nor the experiences of the mind. Before thoughts arise, I am. During thoughts remaining, I am. When the thoughts leave, I am. So the amness throughout the entire ordeal, the entire progress of meditation stayed the same. The witness of the thoughts. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
I am. Does the I am need validation? So it's self-evident. The amness is evident. So that amness is what? Sat Chit. Existence, the amness does not need validation to exist. It knows it exists. Means what? It is Sat, it exists, and its existence is what? Chit awareness. It is aware that it exists. Sat Chit is what? Amness. That amness remains throughout the entire meditation. So this means that Vedantic meditation is only possible if the meditator has Shravanam knowledge, has heard sufficient knowledge of Shravanam. Without this, it is very hard to entertain such thoughts because various ideas from different schools are going to conflict with each other. Okay, now the intellect must be supported by willpower. Drihti grihitaya. So this intellect that I just said, which has the Vedantic teaching of the amness remaining throughout the entire life, the same, consistent, unchanging, it needs to be supported by willpower. Why? If it's not strong, what's going to happen? Temptation, seduction, enticement of anatma thoughts are going to win 10 out of 10 times. That's why it needs to be strong. How do you know what's anatma thought? What's the simplest formula for knowing what's not, for what is apparently real? What is mithya? In one single line.
Changing. It's going to change.
It comes. It wasn't there just now, now it is. It came. It's subject to arrival and departure. Whatever comes and goes, instantly it's not the self. That's anatma. So whatever comes, you can what? Objectify it. Okay, step 4. What should be done after the mind is withdrawn? After the mind is withdrawn, it's at peace and it's tranquil. The answer is entertain thoughts of Atma. Atma-related thoughts. Atma Swarupa. So this means the mind should dwell or abide in Atma-related thoughts. How does the mind abide on or in Atma? Okay, I gave you this example last time. Watch. The pen is on the projector. Means what? At some point, the pen was not on the projector. And as a result of some action, the pen is now on, it's abiding on the projector. Now, can this example apply to the mind abiding on or in Atma? The answer is no. No. Because Atma is the truth of the entire universe. Everything is remember the screen example? Everything is already pervaded by the self, by consciousness. which means that your mind is already resting on Atma. Which means nobody in this world needs to put their minds on Atma, because the mind is pervaded by awareness. That's why you're aware of every thought, because it's pervaded by consciousness, by awareness. You can't say, for example, let me put the pen in space. Can you say that? Why not? Because, exactly, the pen is already in space. It's like, what's the point of trying to put some action to do what was already in space before, and it still remains in space even after the action has been performed? In the same way, consciousness, being the entire truth of the universe, means that if I try to put my mind onto Atma, I'm actually what? Not putting my mind on Atma, I'm putting my mind on an idea of Atma. Own up, remember? The answer is to the question, how do you entertain thoughts of consciousness, Atma Swarupa? Thoughts, meaning what? Features of Atma, are to be centered on or entertained regarding the nature of the self. That's the answer. Thoughts entertaining the nature of the self. What kind of thoughts? Aham Chaitanyam Swarupa Asmi. The truth of who I am is consciousness. So any kind of thought related to this truth, which is already a fact, just like the screen pervading every character is already a fact, is the kind of thoughts that one meditates upon during meditation. I am the nature of consciousness. I pervade and enliven the body-mind. The body-mind intellect is a medium for transaction, and without the medium, I will not experience the world. But I will continue. When the medium, called the body-mind, is not functioning, I continue. Just like in deep sleep, the body-mind is not functioning, it's in hibernation mode, and there is no world. Why is there no world in deep sleep? Because there's no body-mind in deep sleep. You can only say there's a body-mind while you're awake, but you can't say that in deep sleep. There's no body-mind in deep sleep. So there's no world. Then when we wake up, what happens? The body-mind comes back. What also comes back? The world. But it doesn't mean that I went out of existence during deep sleep when my body-mind was not there. Otherwise, nobody would go to sleep. We would all be afraid of going out of existence. So this means we don't need our bodies and our minds to know that we exist. Other thoughts, what kind of thoughts are we talking about? I am consciousness, different and pervading the body. I am both different from the body, but I'm also pervading the body. Those two important words, not just different, but also pervading. Otherwise, you're talking about Advaita now. I am formless awareness. I am pure, pristine truth. I am nirguna, without qualities. Those kinds of thoughts get entertained during meditation. So any kind of thought related to the self, as I said, akanda akara vrtihi, thoughts pertaining to the nature of consciousness, witness, sakshi. One more point is even shravanam means what? Gaining new knowledge, which we're doing all the time, is a form of meditation. Which means that even exposing your mind for 1 hour to a class or a video is what? Meditation on the nature of Atma Swarupa. Shankara's disciple, Sureshwaracharya, said very nicely, one does not need to be meditating separately, sitting down. One does not need to do that. Because repeated shravanam alone can be equal to meditation. What does this mean? Equal listening to this can have the same power as meditation. So I said this from the beginning, Vedantic meditation is not limited to asana, closed eyes, erect back, mudra. It's not limited to that. It can be done anywhere, because what does nididhyasana mean? Entertaining thoughts related to the nature of Atma, of the self. Period. I did not restrict you how, I just said that, which means what? You can be walking on the beach, it's still meditation. You're dwelling upon the teaching. That's what it means. What does nididhyasana mean? A mind that is dwelling upon the Vedantic teaching.
Question. Thoughts about karma yoga and Ishvara, are they applicable at all? That thinking that there is one being that can...
Karma yoga is an active pursuit in normal work.
That's not appropriate for meditation, or is...
Karma yoga is very much meditation in itself, because karma yoga constantly addresses the one total that I am dealing with as both. The one total being what? Ishvara. So I'm only devoting my actions to Ishvara.
It's just a little uncertain that it's like objectifying like the deities before.
That's right. So Karma Yoga is the previous stage, chapter 3. This is a more advanced stage. So you need to know the difference between the stages. Karma Yoga is if we don't exactly get how I am one with all, then perform Karma Yoga. If my thoughts are noisy and I'm not quite understanding what Andre is saying or what the Vedanta is saying, go back to Karma Yoga. If you fully are online, then move on. Chapter 6.
And also, would there be... Can you say that you were doing both in that way as well?
You're always doing both, because you can never be outside yourself. See, this is now you're also touching on the topic of bhakti. What is non-dual bhakti? That everything that I do, I'm always what? Doing it for myself. Everything being myself. Or the other way to think about it is all that I'm doing is for what? Ishvara, for God. Because I didn't create this body. This body eats food. Food comes from rain. Rain comes from the sun. Sun evaporates the water from the ocean, creates the clouds. Clouds, rain, create the food. I eat the food. I didn't do any of that. I just put the food in the mouth, and then the body is alive. So you see what kind of understanding we're talking? So Karma Yoga is this kind of understanding that none of this belongs to me, and thus I am giving back to from whence all this came, or from whence all this comes. So see, Karma Yoga has stages, right? There's initial Karma Yoga, very rajasic mind. That means I am doing this for the total. Next stage of Karma Yoga, I am doing this for what? For myself. Why? Because I love myself. I love the total. I love God.
Well, I am the total,
We're still in Karma Yoga stage. And then that leads into not even having to say it, I'm doing this for God. Because even saying that means there's still an I remaining who's now doing it for someone else. So you see how it's a natural stage? Okay. Verse 26. Yato nishcharati manashchanchalam asthiram tatastato niyam yaitad Atman yeva vasham nayet. Okay, Krishna here is saying, when the mind is dwelling on the teaching, Vedantic teaching, distractions are bound to come. Arjuna is going to complain very soon in 34, and he's going to say, Krishna, my mind is like a monkey. It's everywhere. He's not going to say monkey, but paraphrasing. And what is Krishna going to say? Do not feel bad if your mind is like a monkey, if your mind's noisy, if the mind is erratic. Everyone's mind is noisy, erratic, at varying degrees. This is a universal problem. Do not feel bad. It's not just you who's having a noisy mind. Everyone you look around is having a noisy mind. Thus, feel bad not about such a universal, widespread problem at any age. About what? about the age which we are in, which is what? Today. Today our minds are noisy about what? The age of today. 5,000 years ago, our minds are noisy about what? The thoughts relating to samsara relating 5,000 years ago. Just being in samsara means noisy mind. So feel guilty not about this widespread issue. Nishcharati manashchanchalam. So this is the problem. What's the problem? The restless or the volatile or the extroverted mind will come out in meditation. We're not talking about problem mode. Why? Because various sense objects are going to trigger it. For example, suppose you sit down in meditation, okay, sit down, and a car horn beeps. Due to owning to the mind's association, what happens? A memory gets triggered of the first car that I bought. And then that leads onto the second car that I bought. And that leads onto the person whom I was having a really good time and making a really funny joke with in the second car that I bought. So what started off as dhyanam, atma dhyanam, ended up into car dhyanam in a matter of what? 1 minute. This is the nature of the mind. So the mind's nature is to stray away. If your mind strays away, don't think you're special. Everyone's mind strays away. If it doesn't stray away, you're probably not human. In other words, don't feel guilty about the fact that it does. Actually, in Bhagavatam, there's a story of Jada Bharata. He was a king and a saint. You guys know the story, Jada Bharata. He was so good in discriminating self and not self, satya mitya, atman anatman, that he left both his kingdom and his family. He was so attuned. In the forest, he found a helpless deer who needed help. So he wanted to help the deer. And very soon, he was taking care of the deer, thinking about the deer, constantly meditating on a deer. Is the deer okay? Very soon he died because of his, in other words, what happened? The deer became dear to him. So when he died, what was the last thought? Due to deer dhyanam, what was the last thought? Deer. What happened? The birth and the next janma, next birth, deer. So what's the moral of the story? This is the power of the mind. Never think you have conquered your mind. Even for a jnani, a wise person, the mind can stray without even recognizing it, very subtly. There's another story of a master who was asked by a disciple, "Master, you seem very liberated. Have you conquered your mind?" Master never answered. On the last breath, finally he called the disciple and said, "Ask me a question again." The disciple asked him, "Have you mastered your mind, Master?" He said, "I can now say I have mastered my mind." And then the disciple asks, "Why didn't you tell me before?" "Because I never knew how easily, or you don't know how easy the mind can take me away." In other words, one never can feel or should say, "I've done it. I'm final. This is it." Always recognize the nature of the mind. It can turn north or south any day. So now solution mode. We talked about the problem. Problem is what? Noisy mind. It strays away. Solution. Tatasto niyam yaitade. Withdraw the mind from objects by telling yourself, "Nothing belongs to me." And nothing that belongs to me is worthy of being obsessed over. Because it's not mine. Now, obsession causes what? Ownership. And ownership causes what? Attachment. And attachment causes what? A disturbed mind. So the quantity of a disturbed mind correlates to the amount of times I didn't say, "None of this belongs to me." If I'm able to own up that none of this belongs to me, what happens? Attachment loses power automatically. Why are we attached? Because we think the things that we have are ours and they matter, they're important. But if I recognize that the very thing I'm attached to is pervaded by the screen, this person who's attached is pervaded by the same screen that pervades that person, then where is their attachment? None of this belongs to me. That's the phrase in meditation. So one is to inquire what it means to own up or to surrender to Ishvara. Practically speaking, ownership is to be converted into functional ownership. Ownership of your wife, family, brother, sister, mom, dad, money is only to be seen as functional ownership. Meaning what? It is only owned for the sake of functioning in this world. That's it. There's nothing beyond that. It's just there for the sake of functioning. It's just a job for the sake of functioning. While never losing sight that, what's the magic word, phrase? None of this belongs to me. Which means everything is a temporary gift from God.
But that applies to everything, including relationships, thoughts, everything.
Everything.
Physical body.
Everything. It just relieves oneself because our attachment is due to wanting to hold on. It's mine. But if you just say it's not mine and you inquire into what it means to say it's not mine, just attachment naturally just collapses. It falls away. So everything is a temporary gift. And from whom? Of what? From whom is a little bit tricky to say. From whom? Everything is a temporary gift and is a blessing of Ishvara. Ishvara means the total. And it is only to be used for my spiritual growth. That's the purpose of human birth. Which means not falling in love. What does falling in love mean? Translate it for me, please. Falling in love. I fell in love with fill in the blanks. What did I just say? I got attached to fill in the blanks. So whenever you fall in love, you're what? You are making that object more special at the expense of excluding the worthiness and the value of everything else. Yet the truth is that object is as meanness as everything else.
But it actually makes, when you actually take that attitude, it makes the objects that you do utilize in that sense more precious, and you have more respect for it because of the purpose that it's there.
That's a worldly Vyavaharika, understandable reality, and we're not saying now discard that. We're just saying know that it's not mine, but you can still appreciate it. Okay, so just there's no mistake there. Have family, have kids, have job. It's still there to be appreciated as usual, but just know it does not belong to me. So the relationship changes, the quality of the relationship. It's not grasping or holding on or suffocating it. Summary, in one word. Oh Lord, none of this is mine. Full stop. You can replace the word Lord with whatever word is meaningful for you. Okay, after being distracted, what do we do? Atmanyeva vasham nayet. Bring the mind back to Atma-related thoughts. So as soon as I get distracted, how do we start this verse? The mind will go away, it will get distracted. That's the nature of the mind. As soon as that happens, what do? We bring the mind back. How? With willpower. Remember that statement? Intellect needs to have willpower, otherwise it's going to fall for the temptation of anatma, juicy, seductive, tasty thoughts, romantic thoughts. So verse 26 done. Now I'm going to revise the entire process of meditation again, so we're absolutely clear what meditation is. Krishna discusses nididhyasanam. Nididhyasana meaning what? Holding Vedantic teachings in one's mind unceasingly, or at least as often as possible. What does nididhyasana mean? Entertaining Atma-related thoughts as often as possible. While sitting down, not just, it can also be done anywhere when you have time for yourself. Now, the meditation Vedantic meditation is only relevant after you have properly studied Vedanta. Means after having gone through Shravanam, knowledge acquisition, and Mananam, doubt removal. Only then Nididhyasanam is valid. Meaning, the actual self-knowledge of who I am and who I am not, tattva vivekaha, atma satyam mithya, mithya sarvam iti. Everything else is mithya. Atma alone is the truth. After tattva viveka is fully assimilated through Shravanam and Mananam, the self-knowledge has to take place where? In Shravanam. Is that clear? Self-knowledge of who I am and who I am not has to take place where? In Shravanam. Did I say meditation? No. I said where? In the listening stage. Because how do you learn? Do you learn? You're told information. That's how you learn. How am I going to get this in meditation if I'm not learning anything? Yeah, exactly. Okay. So systematic study alone has to produce the self-knowledge. Systematic study on whose part? On your part. How? Through Shravanam. Metaphor? Suppose that you're looking yourself you're looking at your body in front of a mirror. There's a mirror. To see your body completely, clearly, there has to be two conditions. The first one, the mirror has to be clean, pure, and the second, the mirror has to be properly positioned. Otherwise, you're going to have a distorted image of your body. Similarly, how does self-knowledge take place? In a mind which is first pure, clear, Karma Yoga is one of them. And why did I say Karma Yoga? Because Karma Yoga is a means to purify the mind. So a mind that is pure and the teaching has been properly listened to and assimilated. Otherwise, if it's not, it's as good as the mirror being skewed, and I think I got it, but it's actually what? The knowledge, Atma Swarupa, is still skewed. In other words, I'm not going to get the actuality of what is being communicated by the teacher. And the teacher itself, him or herself, also has to properly position the knowledge in order for the knowledge to take place. So it's a part on both sides. So two conditions. There has to be clarity for the knowledge to take place, and two, the knowledge has to be properly assimilated from all angles, from different angles. If I just look at it once and I say, I got it, I'm consciousness awareness, now let's walk away. That's not enough, because we have lifetimes of conditioning to think otherwise, that we are the body, mind, intellect. So it doesn't stand to reason just to take one single moment and then fly away and see, I've got it. Vedantic meditation is not for self-knowledge intake, as I said before, which means we do not gain new knowledge in meditation, because the only thing that comes in meditation is insights which I've already gained before in the past. So if I've educated myself of what is nature of reality, then during meditation the thoughts that are going to come and epiphanies and insights are going to be what? Of the teachings which I have learned during Shravanam and Mananam. So then what does meditation do? What's the point?
It's really just assimilating. You're allowing your mind to assimilate the info, aren't you?
I was just going to say that. Exactly the word assimilating. So then what does meditation do? It takes the already assimilated knowledge during what? Shravanam and Mananam. Mananam is what? Doubt removal, and makes it even more this, part of me, part of this, part of reality. Conviction. It increases one's conviction. Because it's easy to say, I'm awareness, I'm the self, but is it absolutely firm conviction without a shadow of a doubt? That is what we have meditation for. So, revision. Shravanam is new knowledge acquisition, and Mananam is doubts removed regarding the Vedantic teaching. What kind of doubts? Doubts which clashed with my false notions which I've acquired in endless lifetimes before, and this lifetime. If you're from a particular religion that says God is elsewhere, sitting in heaven, but Vedanta says there is only God, then what is your job when the doubt comes? My teaching says God is over there. Vedanta says God is everywhere. There is only God. Then it's my job to reconcile and what? Diffuse my notion and come to accept, not by emotion, by blind faith, but by my own assimilation, by my own calculation, until I can see how there is only God. Is that clear? Okay. So, doubts removed equals mananam. What kind of doubts? Anything regarding the statement, which I'm going to now say, is going to summarize the entire Vedantic literature of all the Upanishads. Listen carefully, you may understand the words. Brahman Satyam Jagat Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. Brahman Satyam Jagat Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. That sums up all the Upanishads. What does this mean? Brahman is the substratum of the world. What does the world mean? The contents on the screen. The world depends on Brahman. And Brahman is none other than myself. So what kind of doubts should we remove? Doubts regarding what I just said. Brahman is the substratum of the world. If I doubt that, I resolve that. The world depends on Brahman. If I doubt that, I resolve that. Brahman is none other than myself. If I doubt that, I resolve that. What kind of doubts are to be removed? Brahman Satyam Jagat Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha.
All those words I got apart from the last word, Navaraha.
Other than.
Other.
Is not other than. Napara, na apara, not other than. So the jiva, this person, is not other than Brahman. Is that clear?
Yep.
Okay. So how to perform doubt removal? This is the next question. We talked about doubt removal. How? Okay. Where does a doubt belong? Is the doubt an emotional thing? I know it is an emotional thing, but when you say doubt, where does that belong? Thought, more accurate. Intellect, most accurate. What's the language? Do you understand what I just said? Okay, so when there's a doubt, there is an emotion of doubt, I understand. But emotion is a byproduct of what? An unresolved thought, where? In the intellect. What is the language of the intellect? Reasoning. So how do you remove doubts? I pose the question. Answer, by reasoning out how that knowledge which I have received is actually the actuality. What does reasoning mean? Problem solving. Coming to terms with. Looking at it from angles until I completely agree. If you're a programmer or have programmed before, you would probably this example would probably apply to you. If you run a compile of software, or suppose you run your code. Now, what's the code an example for? The teaching. Because out of whom does the code come from? The person who has learned how to code. So the code that I program is a reflection of my understanding. Now, suppose I compile the software and then it run, and it stops. Why does it stop? There is a what? A bug.
A doubt.
There's a doubt. Why is there a doubt? Because somewhere in my code, which came out of my understanding, which I have learned in Shravanam, there's an error. So how do I resolve this? I have to debug the error, debug the code. And does that take time? Sometimes it takes hours to debug the code. And whose code is it? Is it somebody else or is it mine? It's my code. And when did I learn the code? In a Vedanta class. So what does this mean? Vedanta, Shravanam is learning. Vedanta, Mananam is error in my understanding. which causes me what? To contract. I'm not so sure about this. And when I contract, I need to what? Investigate how to reconcile the problematic code which I have come across out of my lack of prior understanding.
But in the analog world, you can actually do a reasoning process where you can actually do a false reasoning and come up with a false statement of truth, which then has to get resolved in itself, and that's where you discriminate, where you come up with two opposed. Usually when you come up with the false one, you come up with a second one as well, and that's when you rise on discrimination to work out which is the truth.
Okay, good point you brought up. You don't have to work out, because Vedanta tells you which is the truth. Your job is to simply cancel out the notions which I think are true and come to agree with what the Upanishads have been saying for eternal generations. Because the Upanishads have already gone through the process of trial and error. The Rishis have already looked at this from different angles. You see, they've already done the work for us. So why should I now be so smart and say, oh, let me prove this wrong? How am I any special? Because their minds were 10,000 years ahead of us. Today we got, what, just phones? We can barely calculate numbers. They remember the entire Vedas in those ages. Think about the smartness of the mind and how many angles they try to what? Diffuse and cancel out the teachings. Can't. So my job is not to doubt the Upanishads. My job is to come in terms with what the Upanishads are saying. That is the key. So I am not supposed to what? Look at and go, which one is right? That is already answered in Vedanta. I'll put a conclusion to this. Doubtless knowledge, which is called nihsamshaya jnanam. Nihsamshaya means doubtless. Or conviction regarding the Vedantic teaching has to take place during Shravanam and Mananam only. Then what is the role of Nididhyasanam then? What's the purpose and the point of Nididhyasanam? Appreciating or enjoying the benefit of self-knowledge. Don't think, when I say enjoying, don't think now, I'm chasing experiences. When you enjoy, what does it mean? I have assimilated. It's a reality. That's why I also say appreciating. That means it's one thing to say I am the whole, but something totally different to understand the depth of that statement. How do we understand the depth of that statement? Nididhyasanam. So, our problem goes like this. We seem to know this. We have heard this before, have we not? Many times. We have done the assimilation. We have done Shravanam. We have done Mananam.
What are those two things
Shravanam
translated?
Shravanam is a teaching.
Shravanam is listening and putting my false notions aside and listening to what's being told in class. Just like if you go to an art class, you listen to the teacher how to draw, right? You're listening. So Shravanam, I'm listening and I'm taking it in. And I'm putting aside my own notions that I've learned in the past. And Mananam is just coming to resolve the doubts that do not quite agree with what I happen to have already known. Okay, our problem is, as I said, we have heard this knowledge and we have done sufficient assimilation. But the promised benefit that the Shastras have been saying does not seem to be in me. I heard this before 100 times from different videos, different teachers, 100 times. I know who I am. I know who I'm not, without a question. But the benefit, as described in the Shastra and how the Jnanis are, which is what? Descriptions like free from anxiety, free from concern, emotional stability. That doesn't seem to be the case in my life. So what's the problem?
Subconscious.
Subconscious? Yeah.
Subconscious is still
Yeah, good.
controlling you.
Good. Excellent. When I look at myself from the standpoint of the Shastra and the descriptions of these jnanis, I doubt. Because they're happy, but I'm not happy. So obviously I'm not liberated. I need to go back into the world and do more work. You see how we get tricked? But that's not the problem. Our problem is not knowledge. Our problem is the full benefit has not been properly assimilated. The benefit is not there. In fact, this is what Krishna says. Your problem is not that you don't know who you are or who you are not. As a result of what? Shravana and Manana. You've done that, I understand. Your problem is the benefit is lacking that it's supposed to produce. Because if the benefit is freedom and general cheerfulness, but I, having listened to that, I don't have that cheerfulness, that freedom, then what does that mean? I haven't listened to it properly. I need to go back and listen. I need to go back and remove doubts. Is that correct? Not necessarily. I've already done that. The problem is, as Lloyd said, subconscious habitual patterns are still overshadowing, overpowering, overriding my usual way or my way of looking at myself. And what's the benefit of knowledge? Freedom from the past, present, and future. Freedom from the world. That's the benefit. When I say freedom from the world, freedom that anything here matters, actually. We'll now step into the subconscious. So what's the role of Nididhyasana? The answer is removing the block between Jnanam, which means what? Self-knowledge, and Jnanam Palam, which means what? The benefit of self-knowledge. Removing that block. What is the block? The block is habituated ways of looking at myself as the physical entity, or an emotional entity, or as an intellectual entity. I still keep looking at myself in a samsaric fashion, thinking about Jiva, Jagat, the world, and Ishvara, God, in the same way how I've always done it. That continues. Responding in the same way how we have always done it. That continues. Self-knowledge is not going to eliminate that. There's still hardwired brain patterns running. So the problem is, the conclusion, is not ignorance. The problem is the same way of seeing, thinking, and responding how I was brought up. And not only in this lifetime, we're talking endless samskaras from endless lifetimes. For example, suppose an Australian person wants to go to Europe. Now, we all know instantly that Europe has a different, the driver is on the other side. You understand? Instantly you know that. Now, you go to Europe as an Australian. What happens, despite knowing? We go towards the right side, and then we find, oh, you know, the driver, the steering wheel was on the other side. Was that an ignorance problem? We already knew where the steering wheel is. What was the problem? Habit. So the habit has overridden my knowledge. The habit that I'm the body, mind, intellect has overridden the knowledge that I'm actually pure, eternal awareness. Or how about we say thank you? You know, we always say thank you in foreign language, and you should learn thank you in their language. And you learn thank you. And you go to the country, and you want to say thank you in their language, but what do we say? Thank you in English. We already even taken the time to learn how to say thank you, but we still are what? Suspect to our habitual patterns. That is the problem. So what does Nididhyasanam do once again? Nididhyasanam, Vedantic meditation. It invokes one's Vedantic personality. It invokes it. What kind of personality? One that embodies the knowledge of Vedanta. So if you want to have a Vedantic personality, Nididhyasanam is the solution. And how is this done? Through your effort. How else? What does this mean? Re-looking at myself, my thoughts in the light of Vedanta. Re-seeing the world, people, myself, through Vedantic goggles. How? Thought by thought. For example, suppose you have a house, okay, and it's an old house, and the house is ineffectively arranged. And you look at the house and you go, you know, if I destroy this house and I rearrange the bricks, I can make a much more effective house. The rooms can be a lot more spacious, they can face the sun, they can, you know, provide a much better living environment. How are you going to do that? You have to destroy what? The entire house. And then with the bricks, you have to what? Put them one by one and put them in the right arrangement. In the same way, how do we fix this benefit problem? Every thought, one by one, has to be looked at. By whom? You. Is that, yeah. And is that going to take time? A lot. How long?
A week.
A lifetime. A lifetime. So you see how this is the kind of things that we have to hear, because we don't want to hear this. Well, I want a pill, you know, just give me my liberation. But the reality is not like that, is it? The reality is we're constantly what? Moving according to our habits, despite the knowledge which we have learned, which says otherwise. And the only way to get those habits properly assimilated and changed and modified is how? By repetition of what? Thinking in accordance with Vedantic knowledge. Thus, Nididhyasanam invokes the Vedantic personality so that it is a consistent, unceasing reality for oneself. The second way to modify habits, a very powerful way, is to, what do we do every day?
Wake up,
Talk. We are never not talking. And what's coming out of your mouth? Words, and who's saying those words? Your mind. Which means what? The words I use are a direct reflection of the mind's habits. So what are we saying? To change my habits may be hard, but to change the kind of words that I use may be a lot easier. So that means what? If I change the language that I use to address myself, my parents, the world, people, God, I'm what? Automatically reconditioning the habits which are otherwise saying the opposite. As soon as you open your mouth, instantly the person gives themselves away.
Yeah.
So what's the fastest way to change your habits? Just listen to what you're saying. And then intentionally start speaking differently. Deliberately. How? For example, before we used to say, I'm not so sure about this. Now we say, you know, I'm quite sure about this. Before we used to say, this is a problem. Now we say, this is no problem. Before we say, I'm worried. I don't feel things are quite as I would like them to be. Now we say, all is well. You're using an opposite thought. How is this done? Through effort. Deliberately, consciously, effortfully. So what's the result of 1 and 2? I just gave you 2 ways to modify the habits. The result is that it does not solve the problem. How can you get rid of a problem? Is the problem real? What are problems, but they're just relative? Because your problem is not somebody else's problem. They don't think it's a problem. I think it's a problem. So it does not, we just spoke about language, it does not remove your problems. Then what does it do? It dissolves them. Now there's a difference between removing and dissolving, and I'll explain. Seeing the problem as insignificant to the extent that it is as good as non-existent. I am seeing the problem. Perception changes.
So what?
So what? From what to so what? For example, suppose you look at the daylight up in the sky. During the day, there are stars. Because of the light of the sun overpowering the light of the stars are as good as non-existent. They're actually there, but they're as though absent. But are they actually absent? No. But why do we not see them? Because the light of the sun has overpowered the problems of the stars. The light of Vedanta teachings overpowers the habits in our mind. Basic law in the science, the law of conservation of energy. Nothing in the universe can be destroyed or created. Energy can't be created nor destroyed. So how are you going to destroy your problems? They're never going to get destroyed. I can't. Impossible. And to destroy my problems means what? I am making that which is unreal real. I'm making mithya satyam. Why would I want to address my stuff if that stuff is just what? It's just coming and going anyway. It's got nothing to do with the self, with the awareness. So what does Vedantic teaching do? It overpowers one's seeming problems as though they are as good as non-existent. In other words, Vedanta gives you a new vision whose light is like the sun. A new vision, which means that the problems or the stars will never go away, but they simply get overshadowed by the knowledge having been acquired in Vedanta. So Vedanta's knowledge overpowers the ego's problems, basically. Because only the ego has issues. Nobody else has the issues that you have. Only I have my issues. And you don't think that my issues are my issues. I think my issues are my issues. So my issues are very relative. So then why should I spend time fixing that which is relative? Okay. So, what does this mean in practice? The problems which I thought I had, as a result of them having been overpowered, they are as though no longer problematic. For example, your family is not going to change because we happen to be studying the Gita. Our family is not going to suddenly improve because we're interested in liberation. However, in front of my purnatvam, fullness, my assimilated fullness of who I am, in front of that knowledge, it is as good as non-existent. That means the family members, which prior was a problem, now is no longer a problem. Why? Because the one who had a problem, having now gained this new knowledge, which is shining in its full brightness, overpowers the light of the seeming problem that was the case before. The body, physical problems, and the mind's physical problems, they're not going to go away. So the body problems continue, the mind problems continue, the habitual patterns continue, but in front of one's fullness, purnatvam, what? The body problems and the mind problems are as good as non-existent. Future unpredictability and anxiety is not going to go away. Why? Because I don't control the world. It's still like, you just look at, it's going to keep going. But in front of my purnatvam, fullness, it is as good as absent, non-existent, insignificant. So did I really get rid of the problem? No. Why? Because the problem was never existent in the first place. As a result of my purnatvam, as though that problem now is no longer a problem. So what's the conclusion? The jnani's freedom, that means the freedom of a wise person, is not because of situations, but in spite of situations. The wise person's cheerfulness, purnatvam, is not because life is now smooth as a result of having assimilated that I'm one with Brahman. But the wise person's cheerfulness, fullness, is in spite of unpredictability, in spite of pain, in spite of problems. You see the difference? Nothing went away. Because the jnani nobody controls this world. The world is the total, controlled by the total. So what's going to go away? Absolutely nothing. So, in one simple summary, Vedanta is a very time-consuming process. That's a realistic statement. Something that we don't want to hear, but it has to be heard. How do you start a business? A very successful business. Little by little. Huh? I look at where's the demand, where's the supply, I do A/B split testing, I do, what the advertising channels are. There's so much work involved. And I have to do, the comparison, which copy did better than the previous one. It's hours, days, and months, and years of work. So anything proper is worthwhile putting effort into. So once again, nididhyasanam is not for bringing new ideas into one's mind. Meditation is not to gain new insights. It's only to stabilize the already existing insights so they are firm, established, full. So what does nididhyasanam then do? It changes our perspective towards the world. That's all. It changes the perspective. That's it. And this perspective change is what brings the smile, the inner smile, not clown, I'm so free, but just a smile that nobody sees. It's just a normal person, but inside there's an inner gentle smile. Freedom. That's what this nididhyasanam does. Which also means it's not going to bring a new flow of ananda. How can it? Ananda is your nature. To bring a new flow of ananda means what? I am not ananda and I have to do something to get my limitless nature. It just frees up the block preventing the ananda from being known fully as myself. In the Bhagavatam, there's another story of Krishna who was watching his family quarreling. The Jnana were fighting, quarreling, and arguing. And he couldn't do anything about this, his own family. So before his eyes, he was looking at his own family killing each other. And he couldn't do anything about this. Now Krishna is Ishvara as form. So we're talking about what would God do, right? In front of his, human members fighting and arguing with each other. He knew he couldn't do anything. So the Bhagavatam describes what Krishna did, his composure. It said, Krishna was leaning by the tree with his hands on the knees, looking at the scene with a gentle inner smile. Think about the meaning of this. Why was he doing this? Because he knew that this situation is choiceless. He can't do anything. If he could do something, he would have done something. But you can't stop people fighting. If you go in there, you get your, as a person, the throat's going to come off. So what does this mean? The Purnatvam of Ishvara, of Krishna, is so full that he just stands aloof, looks at it as it is, without making it something that it's not, without adding personal flavor or personal opinions onto it. So Krishna has what? An inner composure, an inner gentle smile, looking at this as it is, unaffected by it, because it's just appearances on the screen, coming and going. Think about how firm one has to be in their knowledge to genuinely be like this. So it doesn't mean that a jnani is not going to do anything. If there is a choice and something can be done, a jnani means a wise person, then a jnani will gladly do something. But if it's choiceless, like in this example that I just said, then what to do? But what do we usually do when we have no choice? We feel guilty that we can't do something. We feel disempowered, powerless. But how does Krishna? Stand, inner smile. Now this inner smile, we will further talk about and explore in verse 27, 28 next week.
Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.